At that time, I really wasn't interested in any politics. I wasn't interested in any of these political groups. I numbered among the hardcore convicts. And, I hated the place. I felt it corrupted everybody who came into contact with it, the inmates, plus the employees, and their families. And I felt it did damage to society and damage to humanity in general. And all I cared, I just hoped there was a big hole in the ground where Attica used to be. The riot itself erupted over a football game in the yard. Now it was now very few people realize this, but at Attica in the state of New York, up until that time, sports were segregated, white and black. And for the first time, white and black inmates had decided they were going to play football in an integrated fashion. Now, I was, myself and a black inmate, we decided we were going to be co-play managers on the team. And we were having a light scrimmage in the yard, and two inmates got into a little shoving match. And one of the officers came, one was a white inmate, the other one was a black inmate. And one of the officers went behind the black inmate and grabbed him, and he didn't know, the inmate didn't know who it was. He spun around and punched him and knocked him down. And then the squad they used, they came in the yard. We wouldn't let them take the inmate out of the yard. And me being one of the managers, of course, I was vocal at the time. And I told the lieutenant, I said, you're just going to bring him up there, and you're going to take him to the box, and you're going to beat him up. They used to beat them up going up on the elevator to the, what they called it, the box, but it was a segregation unit. And he guaranteed me that this wouldn't happen. And so we agreed to allow them to take him, and they took the other inmate, the white inmate, in. And what happened after they got them into their cells, they went back and they pulled them out of their cells, and the white inmate came out fighting. Whether he initiated or they struck him first, I don't know. But being that I knew him quite well, he probably initiated it himself. And then the next morning, this company where the white inmate was on, it was an 8 company in Attica. They called it a grading company. And they would go to late breakfast. But there was a Spanish inmate on the gallery, locking on that gallery. At that time, he'd just been released from the segregation unit. They called him local. And he smashed a bottle in one of the officers' faces as they were going by. And the next morning, when they opened the cells with levers at the end of the gallery, they didn't let the Hispanic inmate out of his cell. So the other inmates just went and pushed the officer aside and pulled the lever and let him out. And they went to the mess hall. They had their breakfast. When they returned from the mess hall, there was a yard door halfway down the tunnel to their block, their cell block. And the door was locked. Usually it's open, they could go in the yard. So obviously the administration just wanted to get these guys behind bars. So they refused to leave where the door was, and a captain came with 2 officers and started threatening them, and the loco punched the captain out, and that's where it started. And they went down the hallway, and it was what they call Times Square. There were gates, and there was a defective mechanism on one of the gates. They hit it, and it went down, and they spread all over the prison. As they went through the prison, they picked up inmates all the way. Now, it was a spontaneous thing, but it was the atmosphere in the prison. See, and what a lot of people don't know, and they lost sight of it because of what happened at Attica, but approximately a year before Attica, in Auburn, there was a riot, and they had officers encircled in the middle of the yard, and they had poured gasoline on them. And that riot was settled, but after it was settled, there were a lot of retributions involved, and quite a few of those inmates who received the retribution from Auburn, they were sent to Attica, and there was plenty of discontent in Attica at the time. You know, I was working in the powerhouse. It was inside the wall at that time, but there was a big fence around it. And I used in the mornings, we had a loading platform there, and there was an incinerator in the ground there. And I would sit there and I would drink my coffee in the morning. I happened to look up, and I saw one of my friends and a truck coming in, and I saw my friend beating an officer with a club, and you know, I said, what the hell's going on here? And then I heard an explosion, and the metal shop was blowing up, and that's when I knew there was a riot, and that's when I first realized that, you know, there was actually a riot. But as I said, it was the political awareness of the inmates. For the first time, these guys were realizing that they had rights, and they were thinking better of themselves, and they were tired of being demeaned. And one of the inmates made a statement. You know, I felt it was apropos. He says, "I'd rather live as die as a man than live as a dog." They put me in segregation after they retook the prison, and my daughter was 8 years old at the time, and my father and my niece brought my daughter when Attica opened up again, and you know, they were allowing visitors, and brought my daughter to visit me, and they stopped at a restaurant to eat, and the people who worked in the restaurant, they know who didn't belong in the area, and they know who was visiting the prison. Anyway, they refused to serve my family and other families in the restaurant, and one of the waitresses even refused to give my daughter a glass of water, who was 8 years old. And you know, that shows you that, I found out later that this waitress, one of her uncles, was killed in the riot. But that goes to show you how these places, they corrupt the families too, and the impression it made on my daughter at that age, you know, it corrupted her to a certain extent too, where she got defiant against authority and felt that, you know, people were untrustworthy and they're mean and so on and so forth. You know, I've seen a difference. I've seen a difference in the last 15, 20 years. And, you know, I met some really decent officers, particularly at Collins Correctional Facility, the last institution that I was in. And, you know, they weren't like the old-time officers where they go to work and their whole ambition is to make people as miserable as they can make them. You know, these guys, they just want to go and they want to just be normal human beings and put whatever time they want to put into the job and not try to make things hard for the inmates. You know, at Collins Correctional Facility, I can't say enough how decent the officers are there. You know, they really are.